So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but you'll have the slides and you can review them later. So we've talked about outside forces, and for the last 10 years, since about 2012, 2013, we've seen this gap, this unknown gap continue to get bigger and bigger. And a lot of big advertisers are spending billions of dollars. Last year, full year 2021, in the US alone, they spent 189 billion in digital, the majority of which is going through programmatic channels. And that's a very bad thing because you see the green and yellow lines. You've seen this slide before, but as you've noticed, the human activity on the internet, social and mobile have all plateaued. So there's something else going on there that's driving that huge increase in spend, and it's certainly not human activity. Okay, over the years, you've also seen this slide. There are now 10 years worth of named botnets, right? These botnets are so famous that they get names. But you'll notice if we read from left to right, most of the botnets on the right-hand side are green because they're used for ad fraud. Their primary use is ad fraud. The bad guys have all turned their botnets to ad fraud because it's the most lucrative and lowest risk form of use of their bots. Okay, so they're now using these vast botnets to generate traffic, ad impressions, and clicks, and all of that is sapping the advertisers' dollars. Okay. And furthermore, in the programmatic supply chain, there's a lot of non-transparency, right? We all know that, but now we have 4 studies by industry trade associations that show that good publishers are getting less than 50 cents on the dollar. So 50% of the ad impression or the price of the ad impression actually goes to the publisher for showing the ads. Where does the rest of that go? It goes to all the middlemen who are feasting on those dollars, right? They are toll takers. They are taking away from the dollars that should have come to you, the publishers, for showing the ads. So now there's a movement, there's the beginning of a movement where the advertisers are realizing they can essentially double their money by buying direct from good publishers. So as many of you can do, or as many as can possibly go out and sell direct, right? Just up those the sales calls, try to convince as many advertisers to buy direct from you as possible, because then they can be saving the 50% tax that they are unknowingly paying to the ad tech companies by buying through programmatic channels. Okay. And over the years, we've seen many examples of this, right? From 2016, when The Guardian ran their own experiment, they bought their own ads. They got 30 cents on the dollar. When Business Insider ran that same experiment and they spent $40,000 buying their own inventory through programmatic channels, they only got $97 back. Okay, that's a 99% loss in the supply chain. And that seems unreasonable. But now when we are looking at this more recent study from a colleague of mine, some of these SSPs take between 20 and 60%. And you'll notice SSP number 3, there's an example where we observe them taking 99%. So 99 cents on the dollar goes to the SSP itself. The reason they're able to get away with this is because the publishers never see the CPM that the advertisers bid, and the advertisers never see the CPM that you, the publishers, get. So conveniently, the middlemen hide all that from them. And unless we triangulate it as an outside independent researcher, you won't be able to see this, right? Because everyone who's a middleman is arbitraging and making money off of this. And you're getting far less than what the advertiser paid. So what I've been telling the advertiser that I work with, especially some pharma clients, is to buy as much direct from publishers like New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of Clinical Oncology, as much as possible, because that way you're saving at least the 50% tax, and in some cases, the 99% tax. Okay, so I'll finish this section by just saying that fraud detection tech that's being used by everybody is completely useless. And I've said this for years and years. They still report 1.5% IVT, invalid traffic. Okay, and this is a report from one of the vendors, and you can see they're reporting straight up and down right here. It's all in the 1% range. Okay, this is one of the vendors, and this is the other of the vendors. Okay, I'm not going to name names on this, but you know who I'm talking about. In this case, entire buckets that are labeled mobile in-app. So 2 million impressions labeled mobile in-app. they're labeling that entire bucket as 99.992% fraud free, even though they didn't break out which apps they were, right? I know which apps they were, and I'll show you in a second. But it's basically they're labeling entire buckets of mobile in-app as 99.9% fraud free. And then, furthermore, if you look further down here, buckets where they have NA, so not applicable, meaning they don't even know where the ads ran. But yet, look over here on the right-hand side, they're still marking those as 99.99% fraud free. How can you label something that you don't even know where the ad ran? How can you label that as 99% fraud free? Okay, that's a problem with the current fraud detection companies. And I'll offer you one of the reasons that I've seen. This is from years ago. The bots are good enough to block the detection tags. So just like humans block ads, bots who are trying to avoid getting caught are going to block the detection tags from the two largest detection vendors. So in this case, this is a sample of code that we captured in 2014, where they're blocking one of the vendors' tags so that they cannot measure them. But if you look closely here, do you see the status code 200? They're returning a status of 200 OK, which tells the servers that the tag was loaded when it actually wasn't. Okay, so they're basically tricking the detection vendors into thinking the tag was loaded when it actually wasn't, when it was blocked. So when the detection vendor has no data, they're not able to mark it as IVT. Therefore, they're only able to mark the 1% as invalid traffic. Most people incorrectly assume that the other 99% is good and fine and human. What you should realize is that the other 99% could mean that they have no data. And so therefore they could not mark it as invalid traffic. You should not assume that the other 99% is good. Okay, that's why their numbers are always in the 1% range, because the bots are good enough not only to evade their detection, but also simply to block their tag so that they have no data, so they can't catch them. Okay, that's why they can't mark the 99, anything in the 99% as fraudulent. Okay, that being said, that's the update on kind of the industry-wide stuff. What I'm now going to do is show you some charts of what some of the publishers are doing. So many of you publishers already have Foo Analytics on your websites, but I don't think I've gone into detail of how publishers are using Foo Analytics to fight bots on their own sites. So what I'm going to do is show you some examples. There's going to be 5 different examples of how we troubleshoot bot activity on the sites. And for the good publishers, these are bots that are coming to your site and you don't want them there. Okay, so this is very much different than the fake sites that are deliberately buying the bot traffic because they want the bot traffic because they have no human visitors. Therefore, they need the bot traffic in order to generate ad impressions to sell. So these are examples of publishers who don't want bots to come to their site, but the bots are coming anyway, either to plagiarize their content or to do other bad things on their site. Okay, so we can see through these next couple of examples how we can detect those bots. Now, keep in mind, most of you have Google Analytics already on the site or Adobe Analytics. Both GA and Adobe don't give you this. So you might see a spike in volume, but it doesn't give you enough details to do something about it. Okay, so the spike in volume might be very similar to this green spike down here on the bottom. Okay, that's a spike in hourly volume. You can now see it corresponds to the spike in red, which are bad bots coming to your site. Okay, and then you can see these big, huge red spikes on the top as well. Okay, so when you have Foo Analytics on your site, you can then isolate the dark red. So when we go in and isolate the dark red, here's the supporting data to show you what it is. So let me show you a few things here. The fingerprint means a unique device or browser. And you can see that that one device or browser, which is a bot, is the one generating all these ad impressions, right? You can see 93% of them are generated by that single bot, okay? The platform is Linux x86-64. That tells you very clearly it's a server operating system. It's not Windows, it's not Mac, it's not iOS, it's not Android. It's a server operating system. So this is very clear why this is a bot. And then if you look at the user agent, the HTTP user agent, you can see that it's Chrome 41. Okay, Chrome is automatically updated for humans. So right now, the most recent versions of Chrome on humans' PCs are 105, 104, and 103. So when you see Chrome 41 here, or even Chrome 88, these are very, very old versions, more than 50 versions out of date. Okay, so that again is a telltale sign that this is a bot. So in the analytics platform, in my analytics platform, when we see the red, we don't assume that we marked it correctly. We have to also study the supporting data so that we can actually understand why it was marked as red. Okay, and I think there's one more additional detail here. Okay, so focusing still on those red spikes, you can see they all have the same screen resolution, 1024 by 768. The window size is all 1920 by 1080. The country and the GOAS, that's the name of the data center. You can see they're all coming from Amazon Data Center. And then Ashburn, Virginia. So we have jokingly said that bots don't come from Russia and China anymore. They come from Ashburn, Virginia. That's where Amazon has one of their largest East Coast data centers. And then you'll also notice in this particular case, the bot didn't even bother to disguise its IP address, right? All 93% of these impressions came from that one IP address, 18.235, etc. So some of the publishers that I work with can now, when they see this IP address and then when they see all this supporting data to know for sure that it's a bot, they can then go into their own servers and block this particular IP address. Or if they're using Cloudflare or some other web application firewall, they can add this particular IP address to the block list. And that effectively blocks that bot from coming to their site to steal their content. Okay, so I'm giving you this one example. This is all site A. We see the big spikes. Now with Foo Analytics, we can go in and study what it is and then come to something that we can take action on, which is block that IP address, right? If you decide to do that. Okay. I hear some chimes, but I don't see anything typed in the chat. So I'm just checking with Todd to see if I'm missing any questions coming in. Feel free to type in the chat. Okay.
That was,
all right. So
yes, there was just folks coming in.
okay. If anyone has questions as I go along, please feel free to type it in chat. I have the small window open here so I can try to answer it in real time. Okay, so this is the next site. You can see here there's a very consistent level of bot traffic, which is the dark red. You'll see this yellow spike here in the middle. So what we're going to do is actually study the yellow. Actually, we're going to study both the yellow and the dark red. So in this next slide, when we focus in on just the yellow, okay, you'll see again the same bot. So this one fingerprint, which is an anonymous representation of the same device, is generating 97% of what is marked as yellow. Yellow in Foo Analytics means search crawlers. So now we can actually look at additional confirmation. Okay, so the platform is Win32. So these crawlers declare themselves to be from Windows devices. If you look at the user agent, you'll see that this is Googlebot 2.1. So in this particular case, this is being declared as the search bot. That's why we marked it as yellow. But if you look further down here in the name of the ISP, it's mostly from Gamma Telecom Holdings, okay, and not Google. The real Google search bot, which is the search engine crawler, comes from Google, not from Gamma Telecom. So this is a case where we now can see that the bad guys are falsifying the user agent to deliberately pretend to be the Google search bot. Okay, and then I'm going to get to your question in 1 second. When we focus in on the red, again, we're looking at the supporting details to confirm whether we marked it correctly. So Linux x86-64, that's a server operating system. Chrome 72, that's 30 versions out of date. Amazon data centers and Google Cloud. And then finally, Ashburn and Boardman, Montana. So Ashburn, Virginia, Boardman, Montana are two large Amazon data centers. Okay, so again, we can confirm with the supporting details that we mark these correctly as red and yellow. Okay, so let's see, on site A, the question is, what is the relationship with Amazon? Site A has no relationship with Amazon. Okay, so these bots are coming to their page and these are sent by somebody else. So whether it's a fraudster or whether it's someone trying to steal their data, the bad guy is using a botnet that is created by using headless browsers in Amazon data centers. Okay, so someone else is sending that traffic to their site. Okay, so the site itself has no relationship with Amazon. It's someone else who's sending that bot traffic to their site. Okay, hopefully I answered your question. If I didn't, please send a follow-up question in the chat. Okay, so let me move on to a few more of these examples. Okay, so this is the third example, site C. Again, this is on-site measurements. You'll see a lot of dark blue, which are the humans coming to the site, but you'll also see a very large level of bot activity. So the red is the bad bots. Yellow would be the search engine crawlers. So again, we're going to look at the supporting details to see what that is. So in this case, again, it's Linux x86-64, so that's a server operating system. This yellow that's coming to the site is from Yandex, so that's a Russian equivalent to Google. You'll see that the video is all the same size, meaning the screen resolution is all 800 by 600. The window size is all exactly 1265 by 960. Again, that's not a standard monitor resolution, so we can start to recognize these are strange. They're all coming from Russia, and they're all coming from a Yandex data center. Okay, so again, this is the supporting evidence so that we can understand what this yellow traffic is. So for some publishers, it might be okay because you actually want the search crawlers to come to your site to index your content. But when I look at this, this seems like too much, right? So this is greater than 40% of the traffic. Okay, so typically search crawlers should be coming at a rate of 1 to 2% of your overall traffic, not 40 or 60. Okay, so let's look at another one. This is site D. You can see there's a lot of red, which are bad bots, and a lot of orange, which are declared bots. So orange means the bots tell you they are bots. Okay, so they're being honest about it, and they're basically saying their name. Okay, so when we look at this for the supporting details, you can see again the same device is generating 99.6% of the impressions. It's all a server operating system. Now, in this case, the reason we marked it as a declared bot orange and not red is because it says itself it's a headless Chrome. Okay, so headless Chrome means it's a Chrome browser that has no screen. So unlike a human that has to look at a screen to navigate, when we're using these automated tools like a headless Chrome browser, they can load the web page, but they don't have to display anything on screen. So these are the automated tools that developers use to repeatedly load web pages. And similarly, the bad guys are using that to create bot traffic. Okay. You'll notice that the window size is a very strange window size, 1000 by 1000. These are all coming from the UK, and they're all coming from a Microsoft data center. Okay. So there's a question from RJ. Hey, RJ. NPI targeted HTTP campaigns. So unfortunately, there are a lot of bots that are pretending to be HCPs. So even though some platforms think that they're targeting the doctors by NPI number, we really have to check those for bot activity. So I'm going to use a more generalized example. So RJ, I can run an experiment with you. I've done it with others, but we really need to look into the data. But what the bots are doing is they're deliberately visiting certain sites to then pretend to be a certain audience segment. So I'm going to use a non-pharma example here. The bots will deliberately look at swing sets in the spring so that they can get retargeted as people who intend to buy swing sets. Whereas the same bots will look at backpacks in the fall, right before back to school, so they will be retargeted as back to school intenders. So the bots can be programmed to deliberately visit a certain number of sites or look at specific products so that they can trick the DMPs into thinking that there are certain audience segments. And so when they become part of those audience segments and then they go to some fake sites or fake mobile apps, they're able to cause the ads to load there and earn a much higher retargeting CPM or a CPM that goes along with an audience targeted campaign, because the buyers think that those bots belong in that segment. Okay, so I can have a lot more examples and details to share separately from this. Okay, and finally, on this last example, site E, we can actually see the increase or the start of where the declared crawlers come to the site. Okay, so very clearly on August 20th, you'll see the orange start and then continue. Okay, so when we look at that, we'll say, what the heck is that? And why is it coming to our site? This happens to be an e-commerce advertiser. And you can see these are all Amazon product discovery crawlers, right? They're all of the same screen resolution, the same window size. They're all from Amazon, and they're coming from the Ashburn, Virginia data center. Okay, so now with Fu Analytics on the site, when we see this kind of surge in orange, we can immediately go figure out what that is and then decide what we as a website owner or publisher or an advertiser on their own website, what we should do about that bot traffic. So this is what I mean by troubleshooting the bot traffic on your own website. With analytics that Google Analytics and Adobe Analytics won't give you. Okay, so this is how we've been using Fu Analytics on the publisher sites. And finally, I don't think anyone in this room is doing this, but basically, I can see when a publisher starts to buy traffic. Okay, so I have this convenient phrase that says bot traffic equals bot traffic because there's not a whole bunch of humans sitting around with nothing to do, but to go to your websites when you tell them to, right? All the good publishers in this room know how hard it is to get human audiences to come to your site, right? We have to create valuable content and we have to make it available to the humans, and we hope that they come read our content. Bad guys don't wait around for that. They just cheat. Okay, so you can very clearly see where they start buying the bot traffic, right? I will see that. And for some of the SSPs that I work with, we'll basically shut them down immediately, right? Once they start cheating. Okay. So any questions before I move into the advertiser section? And Todd, I'm going to stay on time and finish within the next 12 minutes.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. So in addition to troubleshooting bot traffic on your own website, what I think publishers need to do more of is to help educate the advertisers on how to troubleshoot bots in their programmatic campaigns. Because like I said at the beginning of this presentation, the advertisers have been addicted to very large quantities of ads to buy, completely unrealistic, very low prices of ads to buy in programmatic, again, completely unrealistic, and very high click-through rates from bots that are, again, completely unrealistic because humans don't click on ads that much. Okay, so there's an education curve that we collectively have to help the advertisers, get more educated about bots so that they can start to realize the value of good publishers like the ones in the room today. Okay, so let me show you an example of a test that we ran. So this is from a mobile ad provider. I won't name names right now, but I can tell you separately who that was. When we ran a test with them, look at this chart. I'm going to pause for a second and anyone shout out if they see something wrong with this. Okay, anyone can chime in. I'm going to focus your eyes on the green volume bars at the bottom. Anyone have ideas? Okay, let me reveal the answer here. So when we zoom in on those green volume bars, you can see that a large amount of volume is used up right after midnight. So do you see these three bars right here? That's midnight, 1 a.m., and 2 a.m. And then the volume goes much lower. And then by noon, 12 p.m., all the volume's used up, right? So there's no volume for the rest of the day when humans are awake, right? And this pattern repeats itself for every single day, right? So most of the volume is used up between midnight and 8 a.m. Okay, so this is what I mean by if you just look at this particular test campaign, even if you don't look at the blue versus red versus orange in the middle part, if you just look at the volume bars, you can tell something's wrong. Okay, so in this particular case, most of the volume is used up between midnight and noon. And if you don't have hourly breakdowns of this data, you won't be able to see this, right? So if you're the advertiser and your agency gives you a monthly report that tells you how many ads you bought and how many clicks you got, you're never going to see this, and you won't know that all of your ads went to crappy mobile apps like the following. Okay, so we even record the name of the app so you know where it's going. So these are the actual apps that I looked up on Google Play. Okay, so if you're a pharmaceutical client, do you want your ads, your oncology ads, to be going to Smurfs Village or Trivia Crack Adventure or this animation throwdown? Okay, there's a lot more bad stuff in here. So if we look more closely, these are the other examples. I'm going to just give you a second to look at that list yourself. Okay, these are suspicious apps, casino apps, gambling apps, crime apps, lotto, scratch off, these are where the pharmaceutical clients' ads were going. When we started auditing these, then they saw that and they basically categorically turned off apps because it was going to these bad places. Okay, and on top of that, I can show you a bunch of these mobile apps are causing the ad impressions to load, and they are also clicking on them. Okay, so the apps themselves can very easily evade detection. They can load the ad impressions and they can click on the ads themselves. And that's how the bad guys are creating the illusion of very high performance. So lots of clicks. Okay, so look at the six-pack abs workout. Okay, that's one of the worst offenders. Female fitness. Some of this is just letters and numbers, so completely nonsensical. And then the goat delivery. Okay, cleaner boost. So all of these apps were observed in pharmaceutical clients' campaign, where they not only caused the ad impression to load fraudulently, but they also clicked on it to create the illusion of high performance. Okay, so this is all using the Fu Analytics platform to audit the campaigns for the advertiser. Okay, so furthermore, let me now ask the room, what do you think the users are clicking on here? So what you're looking at are click location charts from Fu Analytics in an in-ad measurement scenario. What do you think the users are clicking on here? Feel free to shout it out loud or type it in chat.
Choices.
Yes, exactly. So they're clicking on the upper right-hand corner, and notice there's the ad choices triangle and there's the X. So you can actually see that these users were trying to close the ad, not click on the ad. Okay, so there's an important difference. So even if you're getting a lot of clicks, if you don't know what those clicks are coming from, you shouldn't count them. Okay, and then the next example here. So these are clicks on the ad choices and on the X to try to close the ad, whereas these are actual clicks on the ad itself. Okay, so you see the yellow box is the 300 by 250. You can see the clicks are all scattered throughout, and they're marked blue because we mark them as humans, right? So human clicks are clicking kind of spread out across the entire 300 by 250. And then furthermore, we look at what was clicked. So in this particular case, these ads were run through DoubleClick Network. So the click tracker contains this URL. So I've highlighted the adclick.g.doubleclick.net. We also have to look at what was clicked so that we can confirm that these are clicks on the ads themselves. Okay, so a combination of these things allow us to verify which clicks were real, meaning they intended to click the ad, not close the ad, and which clicks came from humans. When we do this kind of analysis, I can tell you that most of the human clicks, most of the real human clicks come from real publisher sites. Okay, if you look through this list of sources, goodhousekeeping.com, Women's Health, Country Living, Elle, you'll recognize that these are all Hearst properties, right? So when you are looking for real clicks from real humans, they're going to come from real publisher sites that have those human audiences. Okay, most marketers don't realize that. They're just looking at the number of clicks, and their media agencies keep reporting the number of clicks to them. So that conveniently hides the fact that the users were not clicking on the ad. They were clicking to close it. Or it conveniently hides the fact that it's loaded by these crappy mobile apps, and the same ones that are loading the ads are also clicking on them to create the illusion of high click-through rates and high performance. Okay, so now after we look at this, for contrast, let's look at clicks coming from programmatic campaigns. Okay, so for one of my clients, we looked at their different programmatic sources, and then we did this across many different campaigns. So again, as a reminder, orange means declared bots, red means bad bots, blue means humans. Okay, so if we look at the clicks coming from programmatic campaigns, this is 80 to 99% bots, not humans. And then in some cases, you can see a sliver of blue in here from 1% is blue to about 4%. That's the highest blue clicks that we can see in these campaigns. So for advertisers, they might be getting a lot of clicks through their programmatic campaigns. They think that's working, but none of the reports they get from their agencies will tell them that. None of the reports they get from DoubleVerify or IAS will tell them that. and their own analytics on their own websites like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics won't tell them that, because none of those break out which clicks are from bots and which clicks are from humans. So once we open their eyes and show them that the vast majority of the clicks they are getting from programmatic are coming from bots and not humans, they will start to realize that, okay, let's just use this 1% here. Okay, that's too harsh. Let's use a 4% number here. If 4% of the clicks were from humans, that means they would have to buy 25 times more ad inventory to get the same kinds of clicks that they would get if they bought from good publishers like you all. Okay. So that's going to open their eyes to say, we're wasting most of our money in here because we're only getting 4% of human clicks. It would be much better if we just buy direct from good publishers, save the 50% tax that goes to ad tech middlemen, so that more of our dollar goes towards showing the ads. And, oh, by the way, get your ad in front of humans so that they can click on them. Okay. That's how you make digital advertising work. Okay. So these are the clicks coming from programmatic. We can also use the same analytics platform, Fu Analytics, on the advertiser's own website. And in this case, they can study what the heck are these two large orange things, right? These large spikes in volume. So again, Google Analytics is going to show them what you see in the green bars below, but it's not going to show you the labeling, bot versus not. So in this case, these are all declared bots that came to their site, and we can see what they are. This is AdsBot from Google and AdsBot Mobile. Okay, so these bots typically come to an advertiser's site, these landing pages, at the beginning of a campaign, because Google is checking to make sure that the ad clicks through correctly and the landing pages are live, and that the content on the landing pages somewhat match the content of the ad itself. So you should expect these large surges in Google Ads bots near the beginning of the campaign, and we can actually confirm that in the data that we get. Another example would be if you look at the clicks, the mouse move and the clicks on an advertiser's site, they should make some kind of sense, right? So on this particular site, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see a clustering of the clicks right here on the top and on the left-hand side. That's where typically the site navigation goes. Okay, so when humans click, they have to click something, whether it's site navigation or links on the page. There's a natural clustering of the clicks. Okay, and then the other thing that we compare would be the mouse moves to the clicks. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you'll see that 95% of the visits to the screen resolution, 1920 by 1080, have mouse movement. Okay, so when a human is on a page, they're going to do something. They're going to navigate, right? They're going to move the mouse. And on top of that, they have to move the mouse to a location before they can click it. So the clicks, you'll see that 75% of the visits have clicks. This number has to be less than this number, because you shouldn't be seeing clicks when there's no corresponding mouse movement or touch events in a mobile device. Okay, so there are very simple internal checks that we can do to make sure things make sense. Okay, so what the advertisers are currently doing is looking at their own Google Analytics. So this is a very recent case where you can see bounce rates, 92, 92, 96. I don't see 100% bounce rate in here, but very clearly, these are useless visitors, meaning these are clicks coming from programmatic campaigns and they're of zero use, right? 99% click-through rate, bounce rates. And the time on site, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 second, less than 1 second, okay? They can already see this in their own Google Analytics, but they can't tell where it's coming from, okay? Or they can't tell why. When you pair that with what we have in our system, so I'm just going to show you this is the way these visitors look coming from programmatic campaigns. You notice that there's no clicks, no mouse movement, there's zero activity on the site. So when the bot clicks through and they get to the site, unlike a human who's there to do something, right? If a human deliberately clicked an ad, they're probably going to navigate your page, right? To scroll up and down, look for something. If you get click-throughs from bots, they're going to arrive on your site and not do anything. Okay, so we can see that in the data. There's no clicks, there's no mouse movements here. Okay, and then even if they do move or click something, you can see the bots typically click on the same XY coordinate. Okay, try getting a whole bunch of humans to click the exact same pixel location on the screen, right? You can't do that. Okay, so in this case, Larger circles means clicks on the exact same XY coordinate. Okay, so bots are clearly doing that, and you can very easily see which are bot clicks versus which are human clicks. So let me wrap this up and say human audiences are very scarce and valuable, right? They're scarce, like every one of the good publishers on this call know, right? It's really hard to get and keep a human audience coming to your site. Okay, good publishers have worked hard for years to try to do that. So human audiences are very scarce. They're very highly valuable. It's just that the advertisers have not valued it correctly over the years, right? And you've seen these slides before. If you start with better media, with more blue, you're going to end up with way, way more conversions. And as you can see, most of the conversions are dark blue because only humans convert, bots don't. Okay. And then you've seen this chart before, right? If you buy directly from a good publisher, you're going to get 27 times the return that you might possibly get from buying through ad exchanges. And there's much more nuance beyond that, but I'm going to leave this. And then this one's a consumer facing example where even if the CPM goes up much higher, the efficiency when you're looking at actual business outcomes by buying from good publishers, it goes up even higher. Okay, so long story short is publishers can now troubleshoot bot traffic coming to their site themselves and then actually do something about it. And then the other step is to start educating advertisers that what they're buying through programmatic is not what they think they're buying. And in fact, if they actually looked at the nature of the clicks, not just the number of clicks, they will see that the majority of the clicks they're getting from programmatic channels are from bots and not from humans. And therefore, they should start to value what you, the good publishers, are providing them, providing a human audience coming to read highly valuable content. All right. Thank you very much. I'll open it up for questions.
Why, thank you, Dr. Fu. If anybody has any questions, you could do them in the chat, or you could just unmute yourself and say hello. That's certainly a wonderful thing, too. We might just be right there. So, well, thank you, Dr. Fu. We'll look forward to your next visit. We will give you leave to go practice your ping pong so that you're ready next month to join us. You know, Andrew McGuire says he's going to take you down in a 5-game slugfest on the ping pong table. And we're going to go from there. And I'm going to just make some moves here. And we're going to say hello to RJ. One of the beautiful things about LinkedIn is that you can be incredibly precise in certain comments, like saying 22 years and 10 months ago, eHealthcare Solutions came to be, unless RJ lied on his LinkedIn profile, but we're going to assume he was honest. And since then, eHealthcare has made a heck of an impact on medical publishing. Before that, RJ was over at WebMD, and while at eHealthcare, he's been involved in all kinds of things throughout the industry, including the Pharma Marketing Network, Tap Native Adjuster, as basically a catalyst, a Sherpa, someone just trying to make what we do that much better. My time to shush, RJ. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks, Todd. Appreciate the introduction. Can everybody see my slide?
Looking just fine, sir.
Okay, great, because I'm not seeing it, but that's okay. So I wanted to talk today. Todd gave me some leeway on what to talk about, and it was kind of a fun exercise. I went back and I looked through some of the former AMM presentations I had given, and I had made a big prediction several years back that I wanted to revisit, talking about the value of data in the digital ad ecosystem. And it actually complements what Dr. Fu just went over quite a bit, and the importance of basically identifying your audience so you can eliminate some of those fraudulent activities. And nowhere is there greater potential for fraud when the CPMs are so high. Like when you're going after a very unique list of physicians, for example, you see great potential for fraudulent players to get involved. As Todd mentioned, my background has been digital for quite some time. I actually wasn't with WebMD. I was with a company called Physicians Online, which was later acquired by WebMD. But POL was very early in the digital space, even pre-browser. So it was an online system back in the day, and then browsers came along and disrupted the online market. But I've been running eHealthcare Solutions for 23 years now. I'm a serial parallel entrepreneur. Parallels was a new term to me. It basically means you do more than one business at the same time instead of sequentially. And that's what I did with Adjuster, which is a company that services publishers and helping them to sort through the third-party discrepancies that they see with their various advertisers. Adjuster, we built and grew to a very nice software as a service business, servicing over half of the top ComScore 100 web properties. So we had clients such as WebMD and NBC Universal and Facebook and Google and others using the software. It was purchased by one of the companies that Dr. Fu just mentioned, which is DoubleVerify. DoubleVerify's core business is in working with advertisers to identify fraud, et cetera. I can't speak to that side of the business much, but Adjuster became their publisher suite, basically, which got DoubleVerify into the publisher servicing world as well. Public company, about a $4.7 billion market cap. And then my most recent venture is a company called Tap Native, which is very similar to EHS. It's a distributed network, but servicing native advertising, content style advertising. So happy to talk to anybody about those at any point. Also wrote a book back in 2015 called Results, the Future of Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Marketing, and won various industry awards, Pharma Voice 100, PM 360 Trailblazer. And with Adjuster, we were on the Inc. 500 list as well as the Inc. 5000 list for 3 years in a row. That's a little bit of background about me. And it's been a while since I presented to this group, so I was excited to come in and talk to you again. I'm going to reference one of the presentations I gave back in 2013. So that was 9 years ago. And I want to tell a quick story because it's one of my favorite moments in presenting. My opening to that presentation, and some of you might remember it if you were in the room, was I said, hey, I'm here today to announce a very big product reveal. It's a top secret project I've been working on for literally years. I've been dreaming about this product my entire life. I knew I couldn't do it alone. It took me years to find the right partner to help produce it. And over a few years, we planned, explored, and executed it. It took 9 months once created to quietly incubate it before we were ready to talk to the world about it. And the best part of this was Art Wilczek was in the front row, really squirming in his seat, like what's he going to reveal? What is this product? It was really entertaining to watch. And then I announced the birth of my son. This is AJ back then in 2013. I'm happy to say AJ now is quite a bit older. Just went into 4th grade, and there he is on the right. And he's also joined by his lovely sister, Morgan, who is going into 1st grade as well. So that's a little bit of background on me. And I want to go back to the prediction that I made at that meeting. So back in 2013, if you can roll your mind back to that time, I made a fairly bold prediction. I said 7 years from now, I believe that medical publishers' digital data will have more value than the ads themselves. At this time, everybody was buying run-of-site advertising from sites like New England Journal and JAMA and others. But I said, this is going to be all about the data. And we had actually at this time been encouraging publishers to authenticate their physicians for probably about 4 years prior to this presentation. And this was an effort to kind of get publishers to move in that direction and really authenticate their users, because I believe that data would be more valuable than the space itself. And I want to spend a little bit of today's presentation trying to verify for you if that prediction has actually come true. It's actually a little harder to figure out, it turns out, whether or not that prediction is true, but I believe it has. In fact, I believe the data is worth more than the media in many cases. So it's been a while, and going through memory lane here, the other presentation that I really enjoyed giving to AMM was I told a story about Steve and Chuck. Steve dealt with disrupting multiple industries through and basically forcing those industries to evolve. And Chuck, well, he actually came up with the theory of evolution. And we talked a little bit about Steve Jobs and Charles Darwin. And the key message and takeaway to that presentation, which I think is still highly relevant today, is that when you look at evolution, whether you're talking about evolution of a business, an industry, or the human race, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. And I think that's such a critical message for this industry in particular. because I hate to say it, and I hate to be a critic, but our industry is very slow to change. I'm talking about medical publishing here. Pharma, you can extend that to pharma as well. But this ability to adapt to change is so incredibly important to staying relevant in the long term. And I can't say that enough or encourage you to think that way enough. So let me talk a little bit about the value of data in the digital advertising ecosystem. I'm going to show you a chart, and this, you've probably seen something like this before. Maybe you've seen a dollar bill sliced up into pieces to show like the ad tax, if you will, that comes through programmatic. This is typically how a budget is spent today in digital advertising. So if you had an imaginary $100 budget, this is typically where it goes. About $54 out of 100, 54% is going into digital. So digital has become the dominant form of advertising across the board. Television is the next highest at 29.5%. But going back to Steve Jobs and the disruption of industries, digital is rapidly disrupting television as well. Digital has surpassed analog television, for example, for video advertising budgets. And that's continuing to happen. Analog television is kind of dying a slow death, but it will happen. And then everything else combined, print, radio, outdoor, gives you another $16 or so. Digital is broken out further into the supply side and the demand side, which Dr. Fu referenced a little bit when he talked quite a bit about the supply side and the potential fraud that's in there. Supply side has to do with publishers and where publishers make money, right? So publishers are getting paid on the supply side. But if you notice, there's not even a bucket in here for direct, because programmatic dominates digital advertising. It's 90 cents on the dollar today. There are still direct deals being done, but programmatic is where the money is being spent. Again, our industry is a little bit behind, so it's probably not 90 cents on the dollar in our industry, but it's significant. And that wave kind of continues to emerge. A lot of people think it might recede a little bit with the deprecation of the cookie. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. I think technology will evolve, and things like identity graphs will just replace cookies, and not a lot will necessarily change unless we make it change. So recognizing that data itself is really the oil that runs the programmatic machine, and that programmatic is 90% of the market. And to define programmatic a little bit more specifically, in programmatic, you are buying audiences. You're not buying pages or context. You can also do that. You can layer in pages and context, but the vast majority of programmatic is about buying an audience or an audience segment, a cookie pool, an identified physician or identified HCP. You're buying people, and the relevancy of that placement, while important and generally does show better performance for a whole bunch of reasons. Dr. Fu just mentioned several of them. You're more likely to reach an actual person. So I'm not saying context doesn't matter, but most of programmatic has to do with buying people, not pages or placements. And most programmatic is buying across thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of websites for that reason. If I'm looking for a verified oncologist, it matters to me if I can reach them in an endemic environment because of context. It will perform better, but it doesn't matter that much that the price differential is going to be too much different when I can buy them elsewhere on Yahoo Finance, for example. So that's kind of setting the stage, and we're going to come back to this concept of, was my prediction right 9 years ago that data would be more valuable than the media itself? But first, I want to give kind of a brief update on the industry, and I'm thrilled to show a couple of eMarketer slides here, because I've shown many of these types of graphs in the past, and I'm always getting challenged that, well, is this health and pharma? Is this general internet? And a lot of times it's general internet. It's much more specific now to health and pharma. So the data that you're seeing here is specific to health and pharma for digital advertising. So in 2022, health and pharma spend in digital advertising is supposed to be $15.84 billion. And that's a significant growth rate. That's 14% growth. So we're looking at double-digit growth continuing through 2024. And you had a couple really remarkable years of almost 30% growth in 2020 and 2021 during COVID, when pharma really shifted heavily and put their foot down on digital and really started to grow. Pharma for a little while actually became 7.2% of the whole spending on digital as a percentage of all industries. That's expected to slowly go down over time. So other industries continue to outspend pharma, if you will, as an industry class. However, during COVID, it did take a nice bump up, and they hit one of their largest kind of market shares, if you will, in the digital ecosystem space. And B2B pharma, or reaching HCPs, for example, is 1.38 billion. Also had tremendous growth within the COVID period, so 46% growth in 2020 and 30% growth in 2021. That's supposed to wane a little bit, but still grow at double digits and still grow faster than the overall pharma spend. So B2B is the place to be in terms of spending and future growth. And it's expected to grow from 1.38 to 1.7 billion by 2024. So significant growth. Also, it's worth noting that an AMM survey said that sales reps are the largest portion of this B2B spend, if you will. However, teams are cutting back. And most respondents say that they are indeed cutting back on sales reps. I'm kind of surprised, actually, it's taken this long, because for a lot of folks, especially with COVID, being a pharma sales rep was extremely difficult. I mean, if you thought it was hard to get into see a physician when you could at least walk the halls and grab them by the elbow, it's incredibly difficult to do it by getting them on a phone or a Zoom call. And the other thing is that most of the people surveyed said that other NPP tactics, non-personal promotion tactics, will replace those dollars, and they'll likely be digital. So I'm going to do a little poll, and I was kind of expecting to do this live with a show of hands, but we're going to have to do it with emojis. And I just want to ask a couple of questions here. So on the first one, raise your hand or give me an emoji, show a thumbs up or whatever emoji you can put into the chat. If you have a digital strategy for coping with the deprecation of the cookie, just give me an emoji in the chat if you feel you have a good sound strategy. I'm not seeing any unless my thing is not okay. There's the first one.
Everyone's debating in their mind how's the word sound, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm seeing them show up on the screens. Okay. So that's a little scary that not that many folks have a strategy, because the cookie is going away. Google's made that clear. While they keep punting the goal line as to when it's going to happen, others haven't. The cookie is already gone in most other platforms besides Google Chrome. So the strategy of dealing with it is incredibly important from a data perspective. You really need a strategy for coping with the deprecation of the third-party cookie. Let me ask this, whether you have a strategy or not, just in terms of your beliefs, do you believe that your digital revenues will improve after the cookie goes away? Give me a show of hands if you think that the world's better off without cookies, and your business will actually be better if cookies go away. Interesting. I thought a lot of folks would think that in the premium publisher space, but not too many. Do you believe that digital revenues will decrease with cookies going away? I don't know if everybody knows how to use emojis on the call. Not getting too many responses. Okay. And then kind of I think the majority of you are probably in this bucket where you're really not sure. But raise your hand if you're not sure what's going to happen after cookies go away. I would say, I hate to say it, but I think this is the most honest group, because I don't think anybody really knows. I think everybody has some thoughts on it, and everybody, a lot of people will have a plan, but nobody's quite sure how it's going to impact. And it's not just your ability to target. in some ways, medical publishers, good quality medical publishers like yourselves, will be better off when cookies go away. If things went back to, say, buying run-of-site advertising based on context and page. However, remember, advertisers are also heavily reliant on cookies for measuring conversions and actually being able to justify an ROI on their spend. So conversions and the ability to measure them are also going to be highly affected without cookies. So that's a risk for anyone in the advertising business when you have to prove the worth of what you're doing. One more, raise your hand if you're authenticating at the MPI level on your websites today. Do you know who your physicians are, and can you target them? Not too many. And how about if you are providing physician level data to advertisers? If you're returning a list of individuals, these are the people who saw your ad, or these are the people who clicked your ad. Again, not too many. Interesting. This is where the market has moved to. If you're looking at your digital revenues and you aren't happy, it's because this is where the spending's all happening. And I'm sure you're getting all the RFPs that say, that's the first thing we want, and it's the second thing and the third thing. And if you're not doing that, maybe we'll get back to you. But generally speaking, this is what media buyers want to buy today, and have for several years now. And raise your hand if you're making more money from digital data than you are from the ad space itself. This will go a little ways till proving my thesis here. Okay, not too many. So I want to show just two more data points about kind of the future. As Wayne Gretzky says, skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. So I want to give you two more industry data points so you can think about your overall digital strategy and basically follow the money. Where's the money going? So video is the fastest growing category of digital advertising. I mentioned that it's only a matter of time before analog TV is completely disrupted by digital. It's happening very quickly, and digital is the fastest growing category. So if you don't have a video strategy, you should be thinking about one. How are you going to reach physicians through video? Can you syndicate KOL conversations? Can you do video pre-roll? It's a fast growing category. I mentioned that in the other examples, 10% growth rates. Huge increase in video during COVID, of course, huge increase in digital overall during COVID, but you're looking at 20% growth rates out until 2024, where it's still almost a 15% growth rate. So very quick growth in the video space, fastest growing category of digital advertising. Second fastest growing category in digital advertising is native advertising. This is an area we've become very heavily focused in. In fact, I would call us a native company today, even more than a display company. We do both. We do video as well, but we've seen a tremendous growth in native advertising. So 30% growth rate going into COVID, 21, 37. So some volatility. It's a smaller market, some volatility, but still double-digit growth going out to 2023. And this includes, by the way, part of the reason that these numbers might be surprising in terms of their size. This generally includes things like social. So when you see an ad on Facebook, that's often lumped into the native bucket, depending on who's measuring and how they're measuring. In the case of eMarketer, they lump it into native. Some people break it out separately as another category of social. Social is a big part of that. So let's go back to my prediction. And I want to revisit one of the slides that we were looking at before and take it down another level. So again, the prediction is we'll be making more money and the data will have more value than the media space. And here's where your ad dollars are going if we take it down a level. So if you break down the demand side and the supply side, you get into agencies. So there's a fee that agencies charge, obviously, on running these things. Execution, which I think has to do with the agency as well in terms of the time spent on doing that execution, but it might also include some technology and other fees. And then you've got targeted data. So they break out data here in terms of a needed ingredient for the DSP side, and then other, which is a small amount. Then you've got exchanges and SSPs and inventory owners. So one way to think about this from a publisher perspective is of $100 budget, you're seeing about $31, pretty close to where Dr. Fu was. He gave different ranges that it could be. I think his numbers were 50 to 90%. So about 70% or 69% of the dollars might be making it into the publisher's pocket, with all the other fees being associated here. But let's break down those fees and really kind of understand them a little bit better. So I think we can all agree that the bucket they're calling targeted data is obviously a data fee. My supposition here would be that within these other buckets, there's a good amount of data involved as well. So execution, what does that mean, execution? You need technology to execute, but what are you executing across? You're executing across data, so you need databases. There's a portion of this execution fee that's going to be revolve around data. It's going to include analytics, measurement, evaluation, optimization, all things that are centered around data. So I don't know what the right number is, but I put $3 down there. Other fees, I don't know what that is. I put it down. It's a nominal amount. Exchanges, SSPs, $8. I would make the case that exchanges can't exist without data. So when a demand partner wants to buy an audience from the supply partner, if you expose them to every impression out there, it's costly, and there's an opportunity cost to doing that because they're only going to fill a very small percentage of them. So you try and replicate what they're targeting. If they say they want oncologists, you try and give them only oncologists. To be able to do that, you need data. So the vast majority of the exchange SSP side is going to be data as well. And then also, if you're doing a direct deal with a publisher, oftentimes you're going to need to target. So the publisher needs to have some portion of their operations focused on data. They're also reporting just like everybody else. They're analyzing, they're optimizing. So there's some portion on data. So in this rough swag, you could make the case that about $26, $27 out of 100 perhaps goes towards data. So that doesn't get us to the greater than half number that I was predicting. But I think there's some unclarity here as well. And so we look at a couple more examples. So taking a second swag here, let's look at big public companies like Google and Amazon. I think everybody hopefully can agree that these are data companies. It's hard to make a case that Google and Amazon aren't about data. It's the fundamental thing that gives them value is data. So let's look at their public statements, because obviously they must be spending a ton of money on data. And if you look here and you break down Google's revenue, what's not on this chart? What really doesn't stand out here? It's data. There's not a single line item for data. So Google's not buying a lot of data, but certainly Google uses an incredible amount of data. They produce an incredible amount of data, and they keep it for themselves. So you've got a $40 billion line item in search. You've got $7.3 billion for YouTube. You've got $8.9 billion for AdMob. Most of this is all advertising. YouTube does have some subscriptions, but this is almost all advertising. Ad revenue directly from Google, 56 billion in its entirety. So if you do the math here and you say, one of the interesting things that does come out in here is traffic acquisition costs. This is payments to publishers is what they refer to as traffic acquisition costs. So one thing that comes out interestingly here is that if you take that 12 billion and divide by the total ad spend, they're paying out about 21% if you're looking at that 56 billion. Depending on if you're adding in these other items, it might be a little bit less. But this is interesting to me. What's the other payment for in their cost of revenue? My guess is a good portion of this would be data. They do have ad services that they have to run, right? They have to actually deliver and execute, and all of their execution is based on data. So I don't know what percentage you'd attribute to that, but it's interesting that this other cost item is even larger than their traffic acquisition costs. To me, that's a pretty clear indication that the data and the execution might actually be more valuable than the space that they're buying, if you will. Let's look at Amazon. What's not on here for Amazon? Same thing, data is not on this line item. I apologize, that was supposed to be a build, so you're not seeing all of the line items on here, but data is not on here. Advertising is not broken out either, which is surprising for Amazon. Amazon has a $31 billion a year business in advertising. It's not even broken out as a line item yet because it's still less than 10% of their overall product and services revenue when you count the US and ex-US. So significant business there that's not even broken out. But how is Amazon able to go from 0 to 31 billion in ad revenue in just a few short years? It's data. The data that Amazon has from all of the transactions it can do makes the ability to target and ability to deliver results for advertisers so much more potent that they're able to grow a very quick business. So the conclusion on this second look at some public companies is, number one, they're walled gardens. The most successful businesses on the internet are walled gardens. They produce data, they keep it for themselves, and they value it. And they also greatly benefit from it. How much is the open question here? How much is the value of that data for these organizations? And that's kind of the $1 million question we're trying to answer here. But if you look at their ad dollars, how much of the ad dollars from Google or Amazon should be attributed to the value of their data? I would argue it's at least half, if not more. That's why they're so successful. It's why they're so big. It's why they can deliver such great performance for advertisers. And then lastly, a rough swag, number 3, looking at our own HCP targeted execution. So when we go and we buy a targeted campaign, for example, through our exchange or others, basically we pay a percentage of the fee towards data, and we pay a percentage of the fee towards media. The challenge with this is it's not precise. The data fee tends to be somewhat consistent. The media fee can vary greatly. In Q4, for example, media fee goes way up. For a really unique small target audience, like the 3,000 most valuable oncologists, the media fee might go way up. But I would argue that the media fee goes up because they're part of the 3,000 oncologists. And it's the data that ultimately drives the media fee up, because everybody's targeting the same 3,000 people. Therefore, the media fee goes up in an auction environment. But if one of those oncologists is anonymous, their value almost drops to 0. So you may be paying a $200 CPM to reach an oncologist on a target list. If that same exact oncologist is anonymous, their value goes to near 0. They might get a typical $1 CPM as somebody else might on the web, or at worst, not be bid on at all because they're not identifiable in any way. So what percentage of the media spend in the driven price is actually tied to the data, not the media? So even though you can kind of have some visibility into what you're spending on data and what you're spending on media, I would make a case that a good portion of the media fee, especially in the case of a high bid situation, is actually going towards data. So how does this look for us? So on average, for a target list campaign where we're doing physician level data, 60% of the fee is going towards the data. Only about 40% is actually going to the media. And I'm just talking about the data of identifying a physician. And by the way, this does not include the HR elements, which are so much more expensive on the data side. The people to manage list matching and databases are much more expensive than the people to manage ad ops. So it does not include the HR element, if you will, of buying data. Now, if you layer in, and Dr. Fu would insist you should, although he doesn't particularly like the tools that are available, but if you layer in other data services such as ad safety, viewability, NHT monitoring through a double verified IAS or through Fu Analytics, there's an added cost to that. In those situations, generally, if you include that in your data fee, 68% of your campaign cost is going towards data and only 32% is going towards campaign costs. This gets us back to about the number that we saw in that earlier slide, where we said, hey, about 31 cents on the dollar, if you will, makes it to the publisher. Here it's 32, and the rest is going to the data ecosystem. So I hope at this point you've kind of concluded that, yes, data has significant value, but it's kind of hard to pin down because most of these systems are still pretty opaque and they don't necessarily make it very granular in terms of how much that value is. And it's at least as valuable as the media space itself. In fact, your media space without data can be valueless. If that's what the advertiser is buying and you can't validate, then your space basically goes to 0 fairly quickly. So I would argue a lot of the media cost is actually tied to the data as well. The key message I want to leave you with today is that data is being monetized, if not by you, then by somebody else. And you only have to look at the headlines to see that. And I apologize, this was supposed to be a build. I had a whole bunch of headlines in here from Google, and Facebook and others talking about how they benefit from publisher data. And then within our space, more specifically, obviously, IQVIA saw a lot of value in DMD, who does a lot of the authentication of physicians in our space as well. So if you don't have a strategy to monetize your data, someone else will do it for you. And that's the key message I want to leave you with. And there's a huge opportunity here. The deprecation of the cookie crumbling is not all bad news. It's a big opportunity for publishers that have first-party data on their users. I tend to look at these things as opportunities, these unique challenges as opportunities. But everyone is trying to figure out, how do you live in a post-cookie world? People are building identity graphs and other things. You have the firsthand relationship with the end user. You, more than anybody else, has an opportunity to capitalize on first-party data. But you have to take action, and you have to have a data strategy. And based on the show of hands that went up, very few people, it sounds like, do. So I want to encourage you to do that. And I also want to make another prediction for you that we can revisit in a couple of years. I don't think this will take 7 years. I think this is more like 3 or 4. Data itself is going to become variable in fee. Most of the data today that you're buying on an exchange or elsewhere, you're paying kind of a flat CPM for. But the bids on HCPs are going to become variable. And Dr. Jones is going to have a different bid price than Dr. Smith, who's going to have a different price than Dr. Steve. And the reason why that's going to happen is the value to each individual advertiser can be exponentially larger. When you look at a decile list of prescriptions and you look at a decile 10 versus a decile 1, the decile 10 physicians can be magnitudes larger in value to a pharma company than the decile 1s, for example. And even within the decile 10 category, the top decile 10 doctor can be magnitudes larger than the bottom decile 10 doctor. So individually, physicians' prescribing power can be valued. And because it can be valued, we're moving towards a world where bids will be on an individual MPI level. And I'm not sure how long it will take us to get there, but it's going to happen. This is what I'll leave you. Maybe we'll revisit that one in about 4 years and see how far we are on that path. But you can't do any of that without understanding your audience and without identifying your audience. So that's step number one, is you need to know. I feel like I've spent a lot of my career getting publishers to change, and it's a Sisyphean task. But I keep doing it, and I keep coming in and encouraging people to think a little bit differently and think about the business a little bit differently and evolve. I mean, that's really the underlying message is you need to adapt to change, because the world is changing. But I'm getting tired with that. I need a break for that. I can lead you to the water. I can show you what's happening, where the market's going. But ultimately, you guys need to take the action yourselves to have the internal difficult conversations, fight the battles. And I know they're bloody, brutal battles. I've been through many of them with many of you on the editorial side and others. But ultimately, you need to educate your peers that the world's changing and your organizations need to adapt. So just a reminder, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent. It's those that are adaptable to change. So if you want to be like Steve Jobs, then you got to remember what Charles Darwin said, and you got to be willing to adapt to change. I'm going to leave you with a shameless plug here on a nonprofit that I'm very passionate about. And just ask, I'd love to have your support. And many of you have supported us in years past. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that. Many of you have actually formed teams and had your companies run for the Boys and Girls Club. We do a Run for Club Kids event every year. This is our 6th year. And it's a big one for us. It's a big one because when Bill Sheehy and I started this run 6 years ago, we had a big, hairy, audacious goal of raising $1 million for the Boys and Girls Club, which at the time seemed nearly impossible. But through 2021, we've raised about $850,000. So when we achieve our goal this year, we should cross the $1 million aggregate mark in dollars raised for the Boys and Girls Club. It's October is the run month. I would love for everybody on the call to encourage the formation of a team at your companies. It's a virtual run. You can do a walk. It's not about the run. It's about the fundraising for the club. So I encourage everybody to do that. And we've had many of you in the past create teams, and we're very proud and thankful for that. And if you want more information on this, just reach out to me, and I'll be happy to share information on it. Here's where you can go to make a donation to support me. But I'd much rather have you form a team and do your own fundraising page and join us in that effort. Great organization. And with that, thank you. I'll open it up to questions.
Does anybody have any questions? One thing I'll note, RJ, if you get us a short plug with the link and just some text ready to go, I'll get word out about the run in an upcoming e-newsletter too. We're more than happy to do what we can and amplify.
Thank you, Todd. Much appreciated.
Yeah, of course, sir. Of course. Any questions? You know, we made it an hour and a half. We've heard a lot. We're processing a lot. We're going to get the videos out as quickly as we can, gosh willing, today to the membership, so that there's these important messages are getting out there. I think I'll just add in, mark your calendars. I go to support RJ and the Boys and Girls Club, but see you on the 11th for ping pong. It will be an epic night, a fun night, a very important night for a good cause, but also a very important night as we find our new, just to be together and celebrate all that's good around us. And that's always valuable too. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.